Hi guys, welcome to Genius Nook, unfiltered, unedited. I don't know, this mic isn't plugged in either. If you were tuned into my last video, you guys know that I was planning on doing like a video every month in which I cannot edit it. I'm not allowed. I'm only allowed to put in like an intro screen, and the rest of it is 10 minutes of pure yap. And I thought the perfect thing to kick off our Genius Nook Unfiltered is the Supergirl movie. I wanted this video and the comments down below to be a yap spot where we are deconstructing and digesting and really thinking about the movie. I watched the movie when it came out on Thursday 25th, so it's been a couple days, and I just really want to get down into the general gist of the movie. So first things first, here is my spoiler-free overview of the movie for those who haven't watched it yet. And if you're kind of teetering on the edge, maybe this will help you make your decision, and you can save this video, like it and subscribe, and then come back after you watch the movie. Okay, and essentially this movie follows Kara, or Supergirl, on a journey with Ruthie, who is trying to avenge her parents being murdered by the villain Creme of the Yellow Hills. And she asks Supergirl for help on exacting her revenge, and they go on this intergalactic adventure chasing Creme of the Yellow Hills, you know, trying to hunt down, and each in their own respective way take something away from Creme of the Yellow Hills. That is the general gist of the movie, and it is heavily inspired and based off of Tom King's Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow comic, which is one of my favorite comics that has been released in the past few years. I adore that storyline. If there's anything you're going to take away from this video, is read that comic. Maybe after you watch the Supergirl movie, because I think the comparison between how amazing the comic was and how unfortunately lackluster the movie was is probably what makes me so like hypercritical. And I find that people who haven't read the comic enjoy the movie a lot more. Essentially, I'm giving this movie like a very solid 6 out of 10. I think that it hits and it feels very formulaic. It feels but it's not bad. It's just very standard of the mill run superhero movie. I don't think it's the worst superhero movie I've ever seen, but do I think it's the best? No. Do I think it's better than Superman? No. Do I think it breaks or defies genre standards? Do I think it's a good or well-made film? I think it's okay. I think across the board it's very mediocre, and I think it's really doing people in. Anyway, in this discussion, I really want to talk about, number one, the standout aspects of the movie. I want to talk about where the movie falls apart. I want to have a quick discussion on the ending scene of the movie, and then I also want to do like a wider discussion on staying true to adaptation, because they do deviate quite a bit from Tom King's comic, and the discussion about the critics' response to female superheroes. Is it superhero fatigue, or is it just because she is a Supergirl? Pun intended. So sit tight for this episode of Genius Nook Unedited. I really hate how I can't edit this, but I think it's really challenging my speaking skills. I also think I'm funnier. Like, I feel like when I'm doing other videos, I have to be like I have to lock in. This, I'm intentionally not locking it. So let's talk about the standout aspects of the movie. First and foremost, Mily Alcock's performance of Supergirl is the best thing about this movie. I walked away from this movie disappointed in the tools and things Mily Alcock had to work with, because she really, I can't imagine anybody else as Kara. She did such an amazing job carrying a lot of the emotional weight of this film. Honestly, she carried this film on her back. Like, honestly, let's all, you know, put a GoFundMe together to get Mily Alcock a back massage, like a spa day, for carrying that movie on her back. Okay, it's serious. So she was so amazing. Genuinely such a standout performance from her, and I walked away, and this is very big credit to Mily Alcock, being like, I want to see Supergirl more. I want to see more of Mily Alcock. I want to see it done better, and not performed better, but all of the, in terms of plot and script writing, done better. Other aspects I liked of the movie, I particularly like the score. I am a little bit of a music nerd, so I'm always very well tuned into how the score makes me feel, and I think there are moments of the score that I thought was really beautiful. Have they released the score yet? I need to find out the specific songs, because I've been telling everybody I really like the score. Some people said it was lackluster, and no, by no means is it, you know, Oscar, like in my Oscar running of scores this year, but I do think the score was quite beautiful. Other standout points of the film, there was one moment in the film, this is such a side note, there's one moment in this film where Supergirl, so Kara and Ruthie are like sitting in the people's house, okay, I should do a spoiler warning. People can take the hint. I can't edit this. Okay. They're sitting in a house, and Rufy's asking about Supergirl and how Krypton fell apart. And Supergirl goes like, Krypton didn't die in one day, the gods are not that kind. That line stayed with me. That line was, it was slick. It was extremely powerful. I think the standout aspects of the movie to me was some elements of the score and Kara herself. I think Mily Alcock was absolutely brilliant. Let's talk a little bit about Lobo and the inclusion of Lobo in the film. Now, Lobo appears in like 2 panels in the comic, okay? And he plays a very weirdly non-important but shows up a lot in the movie quite often. And I do love Jason Momoa as Lobo. I think he's fun. He injects so much like energy into the film in some scenes where some moments felt quite stagnant. He brought a little bit of life to when he appeared in the scene, but ultimately his role in this film is so pointless. It really would have been the same film, like plot-wise, story-wise, whether he's there or not. And I have a gripe about characters that are just there for the sake of it. Like, why was Lobo there? There was no reason, there was no point. It wasn't even like, oh, we're introducing him now so that we can build up to him being important later. It didn't really mean anything. On my TikTok, I posted a video about all of the things that I would have done to change about the movie. And I feel like if you're going to include Lobo in the movie, I would have given him more of a significant role. I proposed the idea of potentially him being the one to want to take up Rufy's bounty. So maybe the bounty got like exploded and like, you know, intergalactic Chinese whispers, and it sounds bigger than it actually is. And that is the reason why Lobo is hunting down. And that's why he has such like, you know, an endearment for Rufy in the end when he realizes that that was her, and like all of these different things. I just think it was a bit pointless. In terms of Rufy, I've heard mixed feelings and reviews about her, and I don't really like talking about child actors in a very harsh way because they are children. They are in the process of refining their crafts. I don't want to talk about them as adults. I know it sounds like I'm a baby, but I want to give them like a minute. You know, they're still learning, they're still growing. This is an amazing opportunity for her. It's an amazing role. Rufy, I think she embodied and made Rufy more likable than she was in the comics. In the comics, she felt quite insufferable, but here she felt more likable. I was rooting for her. However, I felt like some of the emotional beats of the movie that Rufy really did need to carry. I don't know whether it was the plot and the script writing that disenabled her from engaging in that way, or whether it was a matter of skill itself, and I'll just leave that there. But ultimately, the movie falls apart, I think, because the emotional beats of the movie were not strung along quite well. I think the movie, ultimately, this whole story, and Kara's story and her origin story, is a story about how one processes grief. How does one exact revenge on something that you cannot ultimately change? And I feel like that aspect gets lost. I feel like the whole story should have been told more from Rufy's perspective, because I think that's where the power in the story comes from. I guess people wanted to shy away from that because it might decenter Supergirl a little bit, but I don't think that's a bad idea. I think it would have been such a novel concept if we really had an origin story not told from the perspective of the main character. And that's why I think Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow hit so hard. We learned so much about Supergirl, we learned so much about her origins, we learned so much about her grief through Rufy processing her own grief. And ultimately, I think if they shifted it to think about Rufy more as the main character, even though this is a Supergirl story, I personally think, controversially, it would have been a lot more effective. I think they gave away too much information about what happened to Krypton very early on. I think it should have been sparsed out through the entire movie. I think they should have taken the time. I also think she should have spoken more Kryptonian. I've said this again in my TikTok video, but again, like, she obviously in Krypton she's speaking Kryptonian, and I always find that my friends who English isn't their first language, when they have fevers, when they're sick, when they're really sad, like, they just default to their mother tongue because that is what they grew up with, that is what they have comfort to. I also find that why does Krypto understand English? You know, why doesn't Krypto like speak Kryptonian? I'm sure he does. Like, anyway, little niches, but I truly think that the script is where the movie falls apart. I also, initially, I didn't have problems with the color grading. I also thought Act 3 was very Zack Snyder. The fight scene, what also killed me on terms of the response on social media, everybody was like, ugh, typical James Gunn, typical James Gunn. It wasn't even James Gunn. James Gunn didn't write it, he didn't direct it, but it screamed, and it felt like a movie of a person who watched all of the most popular superhero movies that have been released in the past 2 decades and was like, yep, and tried to bung them together. I initially was not too upset about the color grading, and from what I've seen from some of the reviews and some of the interviews with the writer slash director, who didn't read the comic, wanted to create a more grittier, more grounded intergalactic space adventure rather than being colorful. However, I think both things can be done at the same time. I think you could lean into some of the colors, the interesting color grading on the different planets, and then still opt for darker, more well-grounded planets towards the end, or planets that are going through a lot of suffering as well. I think both things could be done at once. Some of the fight scenes I thought were quite cool, like the scene on the bus, the fight scene on the bus I thought was really cool. The fight scene in the bar, I thought was quite cool, but I felt, again, like the beats of the film felt quite predictable. So finally, let's talk about some things a little bit outside of the movie. Again, I'm so interested to hear your perspective. I am just spitballing here. This idea of staying true to the adaptation, I think a lot of people have gripes with movies that adapt things, or TV shows, or whatever it is. Like, we're in the era of adaptation, and a lot of people aren't happy or get gripes when the adaptation isn't completely true to the comics or whatever they're adapting. And I'm on team, an adaptation is its own form of media and is its own artistic interpretation, and it's another opportunity for a different person to take a different lens and perspective of the thing. And so it's like another format. It's not copy and paste the story. It is, how do we breathe life in a story a different way? How does this writer want to focus on this aspect of the character? How do we want to lean into this? How do we want to lean into that? And so I'm not upset at some of the things that were changed in the storyline. I think I rarely am ever upset at adaptations that don't follow true to the beat of the story anymore, because I feel like, okay, you wanted to focus on different aspects of the story. However, it just falls apart because of the beats of the story that you removed and the things that you tried to stitch together from what remained. The heart of the story and the thing that you were trying to explore wasn't clear. And so therefore it felt redundant to the viewers who felt so strongly and passionately about the comics about why those things were removed. And I do want to have a discussion about critics' response and female superheroes. I told you guys very straightforwardly that I think this is a bung, like, straightforward in the middle movie. I don't think it was anything special. I think there were special moments, but I don't think as a whole the movie is special. It didn't feel bad to me. It felt like a very early MCU. I've seen comparisons to Thor: Dark World, The Incredible Hulk, Captain America: First Avenger, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Like, these aren't bad movies. They're not yawn movies. They're not movies, oh my god, throw it in the bin. But they're just movies where they don't shift the needle. They don't change the dial. They don't add to the conversation. They don't move things. And I feel like we're in an era of movies now, and I think amazingly we are more engaged and locked in to movies, the critique of movies. We're following the Oscars, we're thinking about performances, we're thinking about directors, we're thinking about script writing, like, we're thinking about the composition of a movie, and I love it. I think we should always take these things to be that deep. But I really wonder why the critique is so harsh. Is it that the expectation set for this movie was really high? Because my expectations for this movie weren't very high at all. So maybe I'm just like, guys, it's just a bog standard superhero movie. Is this a response or a reflection to superhero fatigue in general? But I do have to beg the question, is this a response, or is the response so harsh because it is a heroine? I feel like movies that follow female superheroes have a lot of weight on their back because we haven't had a good one. Like a knockout one, like a one that we've had knockout, like so many male superhero movies. We haven't had a knockout ballpark home run. I don't understand. What sport is that? Cricket? Like, anyway, whatever. Score, goal, hoop shot, hat trick. We haven't had that for a, like, we've had good ones. Like, I would argue I really liked Black Widow, for example, and the first Wonder Woman film was okay, but again, we haven't had a home run. So I feel like every time there is a female superhero movie, the expectations that are on the back of the movie are huge. They're massive. And not to say that we should reduce our expectations, but I do think that it leans into a critique or gets people critiquing the movie in ways that I don't think are constructive. I think people are more harsh than they need to be, and I feel like, again, it's I'm curious to hear your guys' opinions. I've been having lots of discussions and I feel like I just haven't fully formulated my opinion yet. I think it is partially superhero fatigue. It is a classic superhero movie, but that's never really been a problem before. Like, there's been so many superhero films, like Captain America Brave New World. Like, it felt like around that level where it was just box standard. It was a little bit to me also like the Eternals, where the Eternals had like good little features, but they didn't lean into some of the aspects of the plot, and they were trying to do too much in too little time. But maybe because Eternals was better like put together. I don't know. I'm very intrigued about your opinion. I do think people are quite harsh on this, and my biggest fear is that it's going to make people not want to do female superheroes, because that's not the problem. The problem isn't that she's a female superhero. In fact, on top of everything, I actually think like they were really trying to do the writing in a way, because she was like Lobo. Apparently the inclusion of Lobo, because the male audience might not want to sit through two women going on this journey and this adventure in the film, that they had to inject something there, is ludicrous to me. I think it's ludicrous. Do I care if Lobo's there or not? No. Did I like him being there? Yeah, it was fun, but it's ludicrous that he had to be there for people to even want to pay attention to the movie. I don't want the critic response and the response from the industry to be people don't care about female superheroes. I think I want the response to be people want a better, well-written movie, a more creative movie. So I'm very intrigued to see what direction DC goes after this. I know we have Clayface, I know we have Woman of Tomorrow, Man of Tomorrow, and there are other films coming out in the slate. So I really wonder if this is going to be Gunn basically putting like an ixnay to solo female superhero content, in my opinion. Hold on, I have to, sorry, it like times me out. That's why I said 10 minutes. I have somewhere to be, but I really do hope not. And also I really do want to have a discussion as well on, they've released basically a bunch of slates of the stuff that they're going to be producing as part of the DCU studios. Wonder Woman, not even an animated show, not even like, okay, fair enough, you don't want to do Supergirl, fair enough you don't want to do XYZ, like I don't get it, but Wonder Woman, oh, my girl has been done dirty for too long, and I won't tolerate it. I'm joking. What am I gonna do? Me and my little mic on the internet. So yeah, I just but to be fair, this is where I'm actually gonna end off. Is okay, here is my theory for what I think is gonna happen. Actually, it's not even like a theory. Like, the minute Man of Tomorrow, I think I walked over that cinema and I was like, that's like what they're gonna do. I don't know. I think some people who watch my content on YouTube have like seen me on TikTok, because I remember doing like a series basically where I was like, this is how I would have done the DCU. Like, it's my hobby coming up with film scripts and like plots and like storylines and like imagining all of that in my head, and I did that for the DCU, and I never released it, but I planned a Superman movie and my person was Brainiac, like my villain was Brainiac. So after this movie, I remember walking out thinking, who are they gonna do next? I was thinking of all the different villains, and I was like, if they've done Lex Luthor now, they're gonna do Brainiac. And then there was the hints of like Lex Luthor teaming up, or like the relationship between Lex Luthor and Superman is gonna feel a little bit different. I was like, oh, they're so doing Brainiac. And then when I heard they were doing Supergirl movie, I was like, oh, they're so gonna do Brainiac. And obviously they went back to the Silver Age origins of the Supergirl comic story. So if you're unaware, Supergirl has many different iterations. She suffers through the women treatment. Like, women just get their story ruined. Like, a man finds her origin story inconvenient for the plot, so he just rewrites them. That sounds very like reductive. I think actually that might be true. There's probably like lots of male superheroes, I just can't think off the top of my head, that have had their origin stories rewritten like that, like so many times. Anyway, and so they went back to the Silver Age, where instead of like the story where like they're both Kara and Clark are both sent off at the same time, but she's knocked off course, they've gone with the one where it's like Clark gets sent off, then they isolate, like they create this force field and isolate a city in Krypton that survives an additional 12 years, and during that time Kara is then born, but then there's something wrong in the planet, like there's radiation, and then they eventually send Kara away to Earth using the same technology that they used to send Clark to Earth. So that's the original Silver Age, and again, I had no issue. Oh my god, we didn't talk about the ending, fuck. Okay, we're gonna talk, sorry, this is a long ass video and it's unedited. I might cut some bits. No, I can't do that, that's unethical. Anyway, so yeah, I think because they've done the whole city thing, I think they're going to do Brainiac. And if you're unfamiliar from the storyline of Brainiac, I can't remember which Action Comics it was, but it was in the late 80s, early 90s. They did this Action comic where it was revealed Brainiac is like this collector of cities. He goes to different worlds. He basically destroys the world and picks one city, collects it, puts it on his spaceship and goes around and does that. And eventually he ends up coming to Metropolis and he's like, hey, I'm going to do this to Metropolis and then we're going to exterminate off the entire world. And so in that respect, a lot of people end up collaborating together, including that of Lex Luthor, to help stop Brainiac. And I think that's the storyline they're going to go down. I think Supergirl is going to be introduced, and the idea of Krypton is important because the city of Krypton, or her parents' planet, I think is going to be on Brainiac's ship, and they're going to go whole super family route. Yeah, they're doing a super family, like there's no doubt about it. I also want to talk about the ending. This is, I think, the most controversial piece on social media that I've seen for quite a while, is the nature of the ending. So in the ending of Supergirl, Supergirl kills Krem of the Yellow Hills. In Tom King's comic, she does not do that. Her whole storyline throughout the film is to be a kind person, and Ruthie, like, this revenge will not save you. Like, it will not help you. It will corrupt your soul. This isn't what you need, kind of thing. And so this change distinctively is very interesting to me, and I really want to unpack it. So I want to unpack it from two different lenses. Number one, the construction of it. Number two, the point of it. And number three, whether or not I think it's a good decision. Number one, the construction and the build-up of it. I think the reason why people had a lot of issue to it, because it felt quite random. We have seen Kara be somebody who's very kind and gracious, just like her mom said. And it kind of built around this idea of the reason why she saves and helps people and becomes a hero is because of the message that her mom gave her to be a kind person. You know, you don't have to be nice, you don't have to be good, but you have to be kind, and you have to, like, do good, like, kind of thing. Like, do good for the world. And so I think without this movie doesn't touch on it, but, like, upon reflection, I would have thought this could have been a central theme of what is the idea of moral good. You know, who decides what that moral good is? The argument that Ruthie makes is Krem of the Yellow Hills deserves to get emmed off. You know, he deserves to die because he is doing so much bad to the world, and he will continue to do so much harm and continue to do so much bad. So is it essentially bad, morally bad, for Ruthie to want to put this man away, kind of thing? And it feels very like Aristotle, like Nicomachean ethics, you know, this idea of, like, you know, is it like dutiful good versus moral good? And like this idea of, you know, you can have things that's like, you know, functional good, like it's good for society, but it might not be morally good. And like, which one should we uphold, essentially? And I feel like if they constructed the argument around that, that would have been interesting, but they didn't do that. I also feel like, again, the build-up is we never see Kara be particularly merciless. Like, again, this whole thing is Supergirl can scrap. Like, she doesn't pull her punches like Superman pulls her punches for a really long time. She hits. But we didn't really see that streak in her. She's very kind and gracious, and she's very understanding. She's very, like, meaningful, and she's, like, not harsh to, like, pretty much everybody she meets. So I think in terms of construction of the movie, if they showed glimpses of Supergirl and Kara being a little bit more violent than necessary, then I think this decision wouldn't have come as a surprise. I think the concept they were trying to get at is the reason why she did it is because she felt like Krem of the Yellow Hills deserved it and didn't want Ruthie to do it because she didn't want Ruthie's soul to be corrupted. But this whole idea is that Kara feels like her soul is corrupted. So I think if they lent into this fact that Kara doesn't feel like she is a good person, or she doesn't feel like her soul is pure, or has seen too much, like really emphasize that point, then the decision at the end would have made a lot more sense to me. And I think functionally, in terms of the wider DCU, I guess the biggest thing they were trying to make sure and address is to make sure that Superman and you don't want Supergirl to feel like Superman's sidekick. You don't want it to feel like, hey, female version of Superman. And I think the movie really was, I think the writer really focused on this and really in every way possible wanted to really make that distinction, even so much as so forth putting Clark in the movie, and so we can intentionally draw those distinct comparisons between them so we don't fall into the trap that people have fallen into for ages, which is so fair enough. And I think that the intention of making that choice at the end of the movie was a choice that Superman would have never made. And I think that's what was supposed to shock us, that actually, oh, Kara has her own moral code and it's distinctively different from Superman's, and perhaps this is something that's going to be clash in the future. And so I think I get why they did that point, to make us know, actually, just because they come from the same place doesn't mean they've had the same experience, and so doesn't mean they have the same approach to being a hero. And then I guess a wider conversation could be had is, does a hero, you know, kill? Is that the wider conversation? But then again, all of these pieces that I'm adding and I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt are just not well explained in the movie to prompt the need for me to have this conversation. I'm just an overthinker, and that's what I'm thinking. And so I think the floor of the movie. But let me know in the comments what you think about the what you think about the plot, what you think about the movie, what you feel about it, especially the ending and this idea of the female superhero thing. I'm really curious about your opinions. I am going to edit this video down. I am. It's 27 minutes long. We don't need to hear all of that. My hope is that you guys are like, just, you know, I think this is the one you put in the background. You know, you're organizing your week, you're cleaning your room, you're in the shower. I want you to hear my voice. That's what I want. Anyway, guys, I can't wait to see you. I think the next proper unfiltered, not unfiltered, but the filtered version of Genius Nook is going to be a Green Lantern video / a book video, because I haven't done a book video yet, so I'm quite keen. Yeah, so make sure you subscribe, and I will see you guys next time on the Genius Nook. Bye, geniuses. Do you guys prefer bye geniuses or bye nerds? I don't know. I'm building a brand. I'm joking. Bye.